Hi and welcome. My name is Julianne Cost, and in the next few minutes we're going to take a look at how we can view our images in Lightroom as well as flag our images and rate our images in order to kind of edit down a large number so that we can select and work with the best images from the shoot. So I'm starting here, and you've probably noticed if you watched the last two videos that I have added a lot more images here. And this is just so that we have more to choose from, and also just so that you can see maybe a little bit better my organizational structure. So obviously it's set by year, and then inside of those years I have each location that I've photographed labeled. But you might have different clients, and so you might use maybe their last names or whatever organizational system or naming convention works for you. So I'm back here in the Australia folder, and we can see that the view that I'm looking at right now is called Grid View, and here's the little icon for it. You can also return to the grid view at any time by just tapping the G key. If I want to go to Loop View, I can click on that. Now, the reason that this image is highlighted is because that was the image that was selected. So let's go back to Grid View by tapping the G key, and we can scroll back up. If I wanted to zoom in on this image, obviously I could tap the E key to go to Loop View, tap the G key to go back to Grid View, or we can simply double click on an image and that will take it to Loop View. Once we're in Loop View, we automatically get the zoom tool where we could click to zoom into an area. If I want to move around, I've automatically got the hand tool selected for me. If I wanted to zoom back out, I could click again with the hand tool. And if I wanted to go to the grid view, I could double click and that would take me back to the grid view. Now my default zoom percentages, those are actually controlled here in the navigator. You'll notice that I have an option to fit or fill. That's my loop view. So if I choose fill, it'll actually fill that area. I prefer the fit option. And then when I zoom in again, I'm going to go automatically to 1:1, but I could select from any of these other zoom percentages. For now, I'm just going to click 1:1, make sure that's my default so that when I do click in, I am viewing each pixel in my image. All right, I'll double click to go back to the grid view. And let's talk about moving from one image to the next. Obviously, I can simply click on the next image if I want to see it and double click on it to zoom in. Or I can just use my arrow keys to move from one image to the next if I prefer. Obviously, the right arrow key moves forward and the left arrow key moves back. Now, returning back to the grid view, I want to actually display more information around each one of these images so that I know more about the photograph. So underneath the View menu, I'll come down to my View options, and I'm going to change my Show Grid Extras. Instead of showing just the compact cells, I want to show the expanded cells. And now we can see there's a lot more information around each image. I also like to uncheck the Tint Grid Cells with Label Colors. We're going to label an image with a color in a minute, and I don't want it to show up all the way around the image. Instead, what I prefer is just to include a color label, so I will check that on, and then you can see here right now the color label's gray, but if I do label this, say red, it would show up red. Right down here is the expanded cell extras area where I can actually change the information that does appear. I happen to have it set up the way I like it, where I just have the base name on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side is the file extension. You can see that I've selected that here. And then underneath I've got the crop dimensions and the megapixels, and we can see those values reflected right here. When you go into Loop View, you also have some options, so I'll go ahead and click on that and just move the dialog box to the right here. If I show the info, we can see a lot of information about my file. Again, we can customize this by just selecting the important information that we want to see from the drop-down menu. Now, there's always two loop options here, so I can set 3 different options or parameters here, and then I can change those right down here. So in this case, let's go ahead and change this to something like the camera model maybe, the exposure ISO, and then the lens settings. So you can see all 3 of these values are different. When I go ahead and click out of here, now just tapping the I key will cycle me through either no info overlay or the first set of options, and then the second set of options, again, just tapping the I, tap it one more time to toggle that off. Tap the G key, we'll go back to grid view, and we can see all of that expanded information. All right, now let's go ahead and talk about how we're going to rate our images, because there's a variety of different ways that we can do this in Lightroom. We can rate using flags, which is kind of a 3-parameter system where you can either flag something as a reject, you can leave something unflagged, or you can flag it. And the 3 keyboard shortcuts for that are going to be X to reject it, U to unflag, or actually you just would leave it blank and it would be unflagged. But if you had rejected something and you wanted to change it to be unflagged, you tap the U key, and then the P key for picks. And most of the time people use those flags when they're really just trying to find the best image of maybe a series. We also have star ratings from 0 stars to 5 stars. Those are really easy. You just use the number keys on your keypad, 1 through 5, or 0 to unstar an image. And then we also have color labels, which I was talking about a moment ago, and those are 6, 7, 8, and 9. So for example, right now with this image selected, if I tap the 6 key, we get a red label. And those are primarily used really when you have maybe a set of images and you need to trigger your memory, like, oh, I want to convert this to black and white, or maybe this needs to be printed. And to remove that label, you would just tap the 6 key again. The star ratings are really convenient when, say, maybe you've photographed a wedding or something and you have a lot of different levels of images. Maybe your 1 stars will get posted to a website and your 2 stars are going to be put in the album, something like that. All right, so let's take a look at how we might use this. I'm going to scroll down. I seem to have a number of images of some seaweed here. And let's say I just want to select the best one. So I've got the first image selected. And certainly I could double click and go to Loop View and use my arrow key and scoot through them and look at them all one at a time. But what might be easier is to go back to Grid View and then select the entire range. So I'll start here and click on the first image and then scroll down, and then I'm going to hold down the Shift key and select on the last image. And now I can use these 2 other options right down here. This is Compare Mode or Survey Mode. If I want to use a shortcut to go to Compare Mode, I just tap the C key, and now you can see basically I have split the screen. On the left-hand side is my Select. This is where I'm trying to promote my image to, so the best image is going to be my Select, and it's going to end up on the left-hand side, and these are the other candidates, or the other range of images that I'm going to move through in order to make that decision. Now I'm also going to tap the Tab key. The Tab key is just going to hide my panels temporarily. I would tap the Tab key again in order to bring them back. But what's nice about tapping it is that obviously I get a lot more space to look at my images. All right, so if I were to like the image on the right better than the image on the left, if I want to promote the candidate, I can use these icons right down here in my toolbar. In this case, I would use the Y to X. I'm moving my candidate over to the Select, and then Lightroom automatically shows me the next image in my sequence. We can see the images down here in my film strip. If I happen to like my Select better and I just want to move through these images, then I can click on the arrow icons right here, moving through until I find an image that I like better. If I like this one better, again, we can either use this icon, or the keyboard shortcut is the up arrow. The up arrow is going to promote it. Then I can click left or right arrows, or we can use the left or right arrows on our keyboard to quickly move through the rest of the images until I find an image that I like better. And then again, I can use that up arrow key in order to promote it. So when I get through to the end of my sequence here, I will end up with the best image on the left-hand side. Now here I have 2 very similar images. If I wanted to check focus, for example, I could click and I could zoom in to both of these images. You can see that they're loading. And once I've zoomed in, now I can scoot around and look at different areas, and you'll notice that they move in tandem. That's because they're locked by default. If I wanted to unlock these, and then I could click and scoot around on either one of these images in order to see a different area. So it's just a great way to really check focus. I can lock them again and click again to zoom back out. So once I've decided that this is the best image, the one that I like, if I want to add a flag, I could just tap the P key to flag this as a picked. Again, if I flag the wrong one and I want to unflag it, I can tap the U key, or if I wanted to flag it as a reject, I would tap the X key. But for now, we're going to tap the P key to flag that as a pick. As soon as I select Done, or I return back to either the Loop View or Grid View by tapping G, you can see that that image has a flag on it. Now, there's another way to look at multiple images, and we'll go ahead and use just that same set. So I'll select the first one and then hold down the Shift key to select them all. And I'm going to tap this time the N key. The N key takes me to the survey mode. Now, I really like this mode because I can look at multiple images at one time. Then, if I decide that I don't like an image, as soon as I position my cursor on top of it, I get the X key. I can go ahead and remove that from the selection. It's quite fast to go through these then and remove the ones that you don't want, leaving more of a series of images. In this case, this is more like maybe what you would be doing for a wedding edit where you have maybe 20 photographs and you have to get it down to 3 or 4. So again, I'll just remove this one. Let's also remove that one. You can see each time, of course, I remove an image, the other images are getting larger to fill that space. One of the images will always have a highlight around it. That is the one that's most selected. That means if I were to, say, for example, tap the 1 key, that image would get 1 star. If I move over and click on another image and tap the 1 key, I can give it 1 star. Or if I like all of these images and they're still selected, when I return to the grid view, you'll notice that here are the 4 images that are selected. They're the ones that are highlighted. If I tap the 1 key now, because I'm in grid view, all of the images will have that 1 star. So again, don't worry about taking a bunch of images into survey mode. You can quickly just deselect the ones that you don't like. I'm not getting rid of them or deleting them or anything. I'm just removing them from the selection. I'm then left with the images that I like. I return back to grid view, tapping the G key, and then I can rate those by either tapping the 1 key for 1 star, or I can go in and flag those, tapping the P key if I wanted to maybe designate these as my picked images. And of course, I can also add my color label by just, say, tapping the 6 key or the 7 key in order to add whatever color I want. Tapping it again will remove that. And I'm just going to tap the U key to unflag those. So you can see that we either have grid view or we have the loop view. We can also go into compare mode or survey mode, all different ways to view our images, and then just apply whatever rating or flag makes sense to you. Now, I do want to show you one more way. I'm going to scoot down here. We'll select this image, and I'm going to increase the size of my thumbnails because you might not necessarily need to go into loop view or change all these views. You might want to remain right here in the grid view and just go through your images and make some quick selects. So in fact, let's do that. I'll start here and then I'll just click on an image and tap the 1 key. Then we can scroll through. I'm going to make a quick scroll through all these time-lapse sequences. And then when I get down to the bottom here, again, if I like an image, I can click on it, tap the 1 key, click again, tap the 1 key, and so on. Now, I can also do this using the painter tool, which I think is really convenient because then instead of having to select the image and then tap the 1 key, I can do that in one motion. So I'll select my painter tool and you can see that I have lots of different attributes that I can load it up with. So I could use my flag or my label. In this case, I'm going to use my rating and I'm going to load it up with 1 star. And now all I need to do is click on the image that I want to add the 1 star to. So it takes that kind of 2-step process and just breaks it down into 1 step. Now let's return back up to the top for a minute. I just want to go through a few more of these. So again, I'll click on this one. If I like more than 1 image in a row, say for example, if I liked maybe these 3 images, I could click and drag with the painter tool and it would set their star ratings to 1 all at once. We'll go ahead and just move through here really quickly because I do want to show you a way that we can then filter based on these ratings. So that should be enough. I'll go ahead and put the painting tool back, and then right up here at the top of the grid view you can see that I have all these different options. So for example, if I want to click on attribute, I can now filter so that Lightroom only shows me the images in this folder that have 1 star. So now instead of seeing all of my images, I only see those 1 star images. Now let's go back to the painter tool for a minute. I'm going to increase my painter tool to be 2 stars, and I'm just going to go through and mark the images that I think are the best out of the shoot. Come down here, just a few more, maybe this one, and these 2 night shots as well as this one, just because I wanted to show you that I can limit how I filter, right? I was filtering on 1 star, now we can just look at 2 stars. And if I put my painter tool back, We can move my thumbnail slider to the left a little so you can see really how easy it is using either the grid view or the loop view, using in the compare mode or the survey mode to look at your images and compare your images. And then you have your option of either star rating them or color rating them or using the flags to pick or reject your files. Then once you've determined which are your best images, simply use the filter menu here across the top to just see those images. All right, let's go ahead and turn that off by clicking None. And I'll return back up to the top here of this folder because I do just want to show you one last thing, and that's the difference between deleting a photo and just removing a photo from the Lightroom library. So let's say, for example, this image here, you can see that it's part of a panorama, but I really don't want to include it. There's no reason to have this wiry fence over here, so I want to delete it. So if I select this image and tap the delete key, you'll notice that Lightroom asks me if I want to delete the master photo from disk or just remove it from Lightroom. If this is an image that I know I'm never going to use, maybe it was an accidental exposure and it's blurry or it's of my foot, then I would want to delete this from disk. And Lightroom will take this image and on the hard drive, it'll actually put it in the trash can or the recycle bin. If I just don't want to see it as part of the Lightroom library, then I can choose to remove it. So if, for example, maybe this was a prototype for a client and I needed to make sure that no one else in the studio saw the images, I might want to remove them. But really, I'm never going to use this one again, so I'm just going to show you when I select Delete from Disk, Lightroom has actually deleted that and it's put it in the recycle or the trash can for me. Excellent. So that wraps up this overview on how to select images and rate them and prioritize them, as well as filter them so that you can see just the best images of your shoot in Lightroom. My name is Julianne Cost. Thanks for joining me.